Hello YouTube, this is Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you today. Now for this one I'm going to go for another Brewdog one. I'm going to get wired into my stockpile of Brewdog that I have. As I said in my previous Brewdog video, I've got about 30 different bottles of this stuff waiting to be reviewed. I might just do a Brewdog week or a Brewdog fortnight and try and fire through these things, do 2 beers a day and try and get these reviews done and get more up to date with them. But today I have for you one of the Christmas seasonal beers that was released very recently, and I think it's actually maybe sold out now, but this is the Brewdog Santa Paws Christmas Scotch Ale. Now as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll just take you through a little bit of a history of the Brewdog Brewery. This is an interesting one to talk about, one of the most prominent Scottish craft breweries these days obviously, but I've done a number of these video reviews before. You'll find the link to those in the video description, but for that reason I'll just take you through a very brief history of the Brewdog Brewery, and I'll talk more about the current events at the brewery, and you'll also find the brewery website link in the video description there, so you can go and check out the blog and things like that on the website for yourself. But as I always say with my videos, if you are simply just interested in the tasting of this beer, then feel free to fast forward towards the last few minutes of the video and you will catch that particular segment. But anyway, Brewdog were founded about 6 years ago in 2007 by James Watt and Martin Dickey, both of whom were only 24 years old at the time, and their first brewery was in the Kessock Industrial Estate in Fraserburgh in the very northeast of Scotland. For the benefit of those of you watching from outside of the country, I always describe the country as looking a bit like a monster's head, so Fraserburgh is right on the monster's nose if you like, and the city of Aberdeen, where I study and where they opened up their first brew pub incidentally, is just to the south of that. It's the oil capital of Europe, a very nice city, definitely worth the visit, particularly for the beer if you're visiting from outside of the country. But as I say, this is a very, very experimental craft brewery. They like to experiment with loads of different hops, different malts from all over the world and things like that. But they also do, you know, any style you could possibly think of with beer: ales, stouts, pills, wee heavies, you name it, they'll have done it. But they're actually very famous for having done a lot of pioneering work in terms of producing high ABV beers, and they were actually instrumental in Scotland in people actually being allowed to sell beer out with the usual pint measures. This brewery were one of the pioneers that said, oh, we'll sell beer in sort of 2/3 pints and 1/3 pints and things like that, and that's due largely to the high ABV of some of their beers. But they've actually got a very famous beer in their kind of core range. This is the Tokyo Star, which is an 18.2% Imperial Stout, and this was introduced back in 2008, and it caused a bit of a media storm in Scotland when it was first released. Many branded the pair as irresponsible for producing this beer, but thankfully they didn't care, and they kept up their experimentations with the high ABV beers, and they went on to produce the 32% Tactical Nuclear Penguin, the 41% Sink the Bismarck, and the 55% End of History. And this was produced largely due to the ongoing battle that they were having with Schwarzbrau in Germany for the title of World's Strongest Beer, although both companies have kind of been largely brushed aside by the Brewmeister achievements. Their Armageddon beer at 65%, and also they have a new one that is at 67.5%, so they've been well and truly beaten by Brewmeister from Keith, another Scottish brewery there. But as I say, Brewdog produced some very, very nice beers there. But they're actually quite cool in this sense, because the fans of the brewery, they have their Equity for Punks program, and they use this to fund their expansions in the brewery, and they actually use this. They have a new brewing facility down in Ellon, which is closer to the city of Aberdeen, and this brewing facility was almost completely funded by the Equity for Punks scheme, and there's been 2 rounds of this that's introduced a lot of new revenue to the brewery, and the brewery's done so well that in the credit crunch around 2009-2010, the brewery company actually grew by 200%. Really, really cool in that sense. But they've got several locations, several brew pubs around the country in the United Kingdom these days. They've got the Aberdeen ones, the Glasgow and Edinburgh ones in Scotland, and of course there's several locations in England, you know, Leeds, 2 different ones in London, Manchester, Newcastle, Birmingham I'm sure as well, a lot of different locations throughout, and they're actually looking at opening several new ones out with that now. But as I mentioned, more recently they moved to this new brewing facility in Ellon, closer to the city of Aberdeen, and that's increased their capacity drastically, and they've produced a hell of a lot more beers since they've moved to this facility. Although the Fraserburgh facility, they actually keep that mainly as where they brew their high percentage beers, and also they do some of their beer testing, produce some of their experimental batches and stuff like that. But as of today, they are the largest independently owned brewery in Scotland, producing about 120,000 different bottles per month, and they export these all across the world. You're talking Europe, North and South America, Australia, the Far East, all over the place these days. This brewery has done very, very well, and they're part of a sort of growing trend in Scotland. Craft breweries in Scotland are standing up very, very well in the world of craft beer, producing some excellent stuff. But to move on to more recent events of the brewery, very recently they've signed an exclusive tap beer deal with Stone Brewery from the the US, and back on the 7th of December they introduced 4 exclusive cask beers that can be picked up at their brew pub, so be quick and check out some of these. I need to go and do it still, but the Stone Brewery are actually one of James and Martin's favourite brewers, and they've also opened up a new pub in London's Shoreditch area, or Shepherd's Bush, sorry, Shoreditch is one of the older ones. They've opened up a new pub in the Shepherd's Bush area of London on the 30th of November, so if you're watching from the London area, definitely go and check that out. But they're also about to release some new beers, and there are 4 new ones to come for a limited time, and during the time that these are available you can vote for your favourite one, and this will become a permanent brew. And the names of these ones are the Armory, which is a black lager, Hobo Pop, which is an American wheat ale with rye, Interstellar, which is a red rye IPA, and also Brixton Porter. This one was apparently planned for release when they opened their new Brixton brew pub, but that fell through apparently, but they still wanted to produce the beer, and this is why they did that. So they're also going to produce a salt caramel popcorn beer, and they've also released these 2 very recently as well, the Santa Paws, which is a Scotch ale, and the Hoppy Christmas, which is a Simcoe IPA, both as their Christmas seasonals. There was actually a very interesting article recently that someone in China had actually basically copied their brand and opened up a fake bar in some city in China. The Chinese are actually getting quite bad for stealing ideas and things like that these days, but they were quite flattered. They're not going to take legal action or anything like that against the brewery, but if you go on the brewery website you'll be able to find that article. It's quite funny. Instead of Punk IPA, the beer in this place is called Funk IPA, so it's quite funny in that sense that someone has gone to the trouble of actually copying the Brewdog mantra and things like that. But the most recent thing that I found on the website there is that they're planning to open up some new international locations for their brew pubs, and this includes Sao Paulo, Tokyo, Berlin, Rome and Florence, and these have all been confirmed. But the company are also looking into opening bars in Brussels, Paris, Barcelona, and a number of US states are also being looked at for new brew pub venues, and I believe very recently they opened up one in Stockholm. I'm not sure exactly how long that brew pub has been open, but I'm sure that's quite a new one. But anyway, let's get on to actually tasting this beer itself, and as is usual with my Brewdog beer reviews, I'll just let you have a little look at the bottle art on this one. It's the standard sort of Brewdog style label there. As you can see, it has the sort of snowflakes and stuff like that on it, with it being the Christmas seasonal, of course. I'll just read out the blurb on this one, as I usually like to do with my Brewdog beers. Says, a 4.5% decadent Scotch ale brewed with Scottish heather honey, a robust malty beer packed with flavour and at a strength you can drink all Christmas day long, a baby Scotch ale which is perfect for Christmas pudding or whilst playing Pictionary with your gran. This is our antidote to the chaos of the upcoming festive season. Raise a glass of this Christmas beer, share it with friends, family and strangers, and sit back and enjoy the view as the world descends into a fairy light fueled frenzy. And if all else fails, just blame Santa. Hoppy Christmas when it comes from all at Brewdog. So it's quite cool, that actually, quite a nice sort of thing there. And as you always get this thing. I think the 2 guys, James Watt and Martin Dickey, are a bit crazy. It's that Scottish genetic craziness coming in again there, and you always get that from their little blurbs. I'm not sure if they write them themselves, but you always get that little hint of craziness from Brewdog there. But anyway, as is usual, here's the bottle cap for you. It's the standard white with blue Brewdog dog on it, this one. But yeah, let's get this guy out and get on with the tasting. As I say, this is a 4.5% Christmas Scotch ale. From what I understand, there was actually a release of this one previously that was an 8.5% one, and it's a wee heavy Scotch ale, as I say. I'm pretty sure this one was released along with the Unleash the Yeast series, Shipwreck Circus, and the Hello My Name is Sonia beer. So this one should be quite interesting to try, but let's get this guy out and actually get on with the tasting here. Quite looking forward to trying this one, as I say. Let's just pop this guy open. There we are. Nice little bit of smoke coming off it there as we open it up. But here, let's get this guy poured. Very, very dark, as you would expect from a sort of wee heavy Scotch ale there. Just swirl it up and get a little bit more head on it here. Really, really nice looking Scotch ale beer, this one, I have to say. Looking forward to giving this one a try. Let's just sit this guy down. There we are. Okay, so as you can see, it's a very, very dark colour, this one. As expected with it being a Scotch ale, of course. If I hold this up to the light, it's a sort of cola colour actually. It's very, very dark. I can't see through it at all. There's just a little red tint to it if I hold it up to the light, but not so much. Very, very dark beer. As you can see, about a half finger of a kind of tanny coloured head. That's actually starting to fade now, just to a thin layer there, as you can see. But a really nice sort of looking Scotch wee heavy ale there. So in terms of the smell on this one, very, very roasted. Sort of picking up a lot of coffee in there, lots of dark roasted malts there. a nice sort of nutty element to it as well, and some nice roasted caramel, all things you would expect from a Scotch ale. Not quite smoky actually, but just more roasted coffee, roasted nuts, and a nice little bit of caramel in the background there. Not really picking up any vanilla, which you might expect, but maybe that'll come in the taste, you never know. But yeah, really nice smelling beer. As I say, always give your beers a little smell before you give them a taste with these. As I say, Brewdog have got some very, very crazy aromas. Really, really nice beers, as I say, from this brewery. But let's give this guy a taste. It's nice. It's actually got a very sort of light mouthfeel to it, this one. Big roasted malts there, as you would expect. It's quite a sort of... It's actually a very wet feeling mouthfeel to it, so the flavours are a bit more kind of subtle and in-depth, if you like. But yeah, you're getting the sort of roasted malts here. There's a coffee element, but the coffee element I think is quite subdued, more in favour of the chocolate. The coffee is actually coming out more on the aftertaste now, I would say. There's a bit of underlying sweetness in there, I think. Yeah, a nice bit of underlying caramel in there, I would say. And there is, as I said with the aroma, there is an underlying sort of woody aroma. I couldn't really pick that up in the aroma actually. It's more, you're getting, as I was thinking with the vanilla, that usually comes from woody flavours, and you're getting that just a little bit in here. Some nice sort of roasted wood in here, I would say. But yeah, the coffee and chocolate notes are coming first, then you're getting that underlying caramel sweetness there, and some nice woody vanilla character in there too, with a little bit of nutty notes. It's really, really nice, this one. And as I say, I'm quite surprised at how sort of light and drinkable this one is. Usually Scotch ales are a bit more heavier going and things like that, and usually you serve these at a slightly higher temperature to get more of the flavours to come out, to get more of the sort of malty flavours on these. But this one, I tried this on tap, I think, and it was really nice at the higher temperature as well, but I chilled this one just a little bit to try and pick up the difference. But at a higher temperature, you're getting the caramel coming out a bit more in the chocolate, but this one I'm still getting quite a bit of the chocolate from, and the coffee is quite subdued until the aftertaste, as I say. But there's a nice bit of sort of yeasty character in there too, just a little bit of breadiness, bready yeast. Nice again, but as I say, I'm quite surprised at just how light this particular one is, but this is probably what you'd expect with it being the lower ABV. But there's also a good bit of bitterness in here as well, particularly towards the end, and this is when you're getting the sort of coffee and roasted elements coming out a bit more, as I say, in the aftertaste. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say this is light to mid-bodied, which is unusual for a Scotch ale. Usually you're looking at sort of mid to full-bodied scale for these things, but it's actually really easy drinking, which is quite nice for a Scotch ale, I would say. And it's got quite a wet mouthfeel to it, as I was saying when I was doing the tasting part. It's definitely not dry at all. It's a very, very nice sort of smooth mouthfeel. It's actually a little, it's not oily, it's quite wet, it's a really wet mouthfeel to it, and that makes it a really sort of smooth and easy drinking beer. And it's a little bit bitter on the finish, and maybe just a little bit dry on the finish as well, as I say. But this is another really good beer from Brewdog. I'm quite interested to try the Hoppy Christmas for you now. I've got one of those to review for you at a later date as well. But again, this is another beer from Brewdog that I'm quite impressed with. I don't know whether I would want to say it's my favourite Brewdog or not. There's a lot of really, really nice beer from them. I just like to rate the beers and tell you a little bit about the flavours, as I say. But this is another really good one that I'm quite enjoying here. But anyway, I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of this. But thanks again for watching my beer reviews. As I say, I hope you find them informative and you quite enjoy them. But as is usual, please let me know in the comment section if you've tried this beer yourself, and also if you've tried the one from last year, the 8.5%. Please let me know if you've tried both of these and what the differences you think between them are. That's always interesting to hear. But as usual, if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please consider it, and please share it with all your beer loving friends. It's always cool to get more viewers and more suggestions for beer and things like that. Always really good to do that. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff you've been watching. Goddard Radio Moscow. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I'll be back tomorrow with another one. Cheers.